Prophet Eric Seal bringing to you a prophecy that is called in these last days. This is July the 7th, 2015. In these last days the Lord shall bring down his wrath against the pastors, false teachers, and false prophets. These ministers have taken liberty to pen doctrine outside of the doctrine of the framework of truth handed down by true living apostles of Jesus Christ. Because of the emptiness and the shallowness of the words, they have driven their congregations from their temples of idolatry. Many are now seeking whatever will give them a feeling of spiritual completeness, leading many to the heathen religions. The pastors have given the flock nothing of value for their souls, but the truisms of this world that are founded on the vain aspirations of men. For in these last days God will gather his flock out of all countries and out of all the bondage of idolatry through establishing his truth through his apostles. The flock of the Lord will be established on a firm foundation of the framework of Christ, where they shall bear forth the fruit unto life, and shall have the increase of the grace of God in their souls, coming into the fullness of Christ. For in these days the Lord shall establish his government of apostles and prophets to be the headship of Christ over his flock, and they shall feed them the righteousness of the covenant of Christ through the knowledge of Christ. And the flock of the Lord shall fear no more, nor be dismayed. They shall not be lacking the fullness of Christ, but they will grow in the strength of God's grace and truth. Know that the Lord will be unto them for a bastion, and it will be against the lies of those who preach the knowledge of the Antichrist. Know that the Lord is filled with the anger of his wrath, and his heart is filled with mourning. Look and see that the church has become a drunkard, seeking for the strong drink of the doctrine of devils that appeals to the fleshly appetites. The church is full of adulterers seeking false teachings and doctrines to place their hope in, the system of this world, and not in the truth of God. Know that the hand is firm, and that the land of this world is now spewing out its inhabitants, and the doors of judgment have been opened on this land. For look and see, for the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse have been riding across the world. For by fire and tempest shall the Lord show his displeasure. He shall take this land by its foundations and shake it to its core. All that the wicked have placed their trust in, the gold and the silver, the economy of this world, their crops, their water, everything, their relationships, it will all be destroyed and shaken down, and it will become no use to them. For the wicked are the blind, naked, and they are the destitute. They have money, power, and material gain, but they have not the grace and truth of God, and they are not clothed in the righteousness of Christ, and have not the expression of the knowledge of God. And because of this, they have nothing, nor do they have life. For they are only the ministers of death. There is no righteousness in the temples of men. Their places are dens for seducing spirits, instructing men in their false doctrines. For within these temples the prophet and the priest are profane, and by their deceitfulness they proclaim to be holy. For their ways are slippery before them, and their ways are filled with the darkness of their vain imaginations. And within these things they shall be driven on, and they will fall, for the Lord will bring judgment against them for slaying men's souls. They are as the prophets of Samaria, seeking to receive gain from the political powers around them, and by aligning themselves with the Antichrist. Know that the Lord is not slack concerning the year of their visitation. The prophets of the wicked hosts call themselves by the name of Christ, prophesying gain, prosperity, and material wealth by establishing a false pattern of faith. By their words they have strengthened the hands of the evildoers, confirming the apostles of death. For they have devoured the souls of men, making merchandise of them for their own gain, slaying the souls of men at their temples' doors. They have denied men truth, and instead have given men lies. Through their lies they are murderers. And when the righteous word of the Lord comes forth from the true prophets and from true apostles, these wicked men have spoken profanely, and have proclaimed that the Lord has spoken to them, and that the righteous are evil, and that no man should seek their counsel. They mock the dignities of God, and they proclaim that there are no apostles for today. They speak the knowledge of the Nicolaitans, and by the spirit of Jezebel, leading men further into darkness for their own aspirations of being great priests to be fulfilled. Yet the Lord has said to you, listen not unto the words of your prophets that prophesy unto you, for they puff you up, and inflame your aspirations with vain imaginations. They speak a vision of their own vanity. They speak not from the knowledge of the Lord, for they say that you shall have peace, that the wicked shall give you their wealth. They say to everyone that walks after the imagination of their own heart, that no evil shall come upon them, but they shall inherit the wealth of the land. Who has stood in the counsel of the Lord and heard his word? For it is the righteous who are called to proclaim the truth of the Lord, who have the counsel of this day. For it is the apostles which have been risen up and have been chosen by God. For this is the word of the Lord and his counsel. Behold, a great and terrible tempestuous storm shall rise and come down upon the false prophets and the false teachers, and they will be judged according to each of their works. For they have disobeyed the grace of God, and have used that knowledge as it has been given for lasciviousness. They have taken the name of the Lord in vain, and have taught vain worship to their flocks. For this is the time of the latter days, and now shall you consider it. Many have spoken, saying that the Lord has spoken to them, when they were hearing the voices of seducing spirits, and they have not heard the word of the Lord. They could not discern the word of the Lord, for they are in darkness, and being in darkness they have no light. All they know is their own vain aspirations, and for that is all that they can hear. For the Lord had not spoken to T.D. Jakes, Kenneth Copeland, Josh Olstein, or Paula White, or Creflo Dollar, or John Hagee, Jimmy Swaggart, and etc. But yet they have prophesied and taught without the knowledge of God's grace and truth. If they had taught truth and prophesied in the knowledge of God, they would have turned the people from their evil ways and put them on the true pathway of righteousness. But instead, they made them twice the sons of Satan as they are. God is not afar off, that he cannot see the wickedness of these pastors and false ministers. They cannot hide in their secret chambers, proclaiming innocence from their works of deception. The Lord has heard them saying, the Lord has spoken to me. Yet the Lord had not spoken, but instead they have spoken lies in the name of the Lord, and they shall receive a harsher punishment for doing so. By their false teaching they have given the name of God over to the name of Satan, teaching many on how to take the name of God in vain, making many void of the fruit of life in their souls, and holding many back from the grace and truth of God by the arrogance of their words, speaking evil of the apostles of the Lord. Yet the word of the Lord shall be as a fire to consume the heart of man, to expose his vile affections. Shall not the word of the Lord be like an iron rod that shall break the pride of the soul as it would break that of a clay pot? So it shall be when the word of the Lord goes forth from his true apostles and prophets. But know that the Lord is against those prophets that have spoken, when he has not spoken to him. For the Lord is against those who prophesy false dreams and cause man to worship God in error. It is in this day they shall no longer gain from their congregations. For the word of the Lord shall go forth to those who are lost, and his word shall be like honey to the tongue, but yet bitter to the stomach. But yet many shall no longer bow down to the false words of idolatry, but they will seek the way of the Lord by joining themselves to the true government of God through the chief steward and the living apostles of Jesus Christ. They who eat of the table of the feast of charity shall grow in the knowledge of God and birth the fruit of the Spirit in their souls. But those who pervert the word of God and speak according to the spirit of Jezebel shall be cut off and destroyed. So shall their offspring. So seek ye the apostles of Jesus Christ, and be ye instructed in the knowledge of the living God, and build upon that foundation which they have laid, with Jesus Christ being the chief cornerstone. For by doing so you shall bear forth much fruit unto righteousness.